What is going on, everybody? This is your host for Not For Long Media, Colin Thompson. Jack in the back's joining us. Jack, how you doing, man?
Doing good, another busy weekend in sports. It wasn't the usual sports, though. We'll talk about it more, but we had some Derby action, some F1, all that fun stuff. It was definitely a different weekend than the usual and NFL draft, or usually football is always in the news for once. We had a quiet football week.
A quiet football weekend. Embiid loses the MVP race. The NIL world is exploding. F1, which took over the weekend and almost trumped the Derby in a way. And Dick Vitale is cancer-free on a positive note. So there's tons that happened this weekend. I don't want to bury the lead, though, which we do every week here. At least I do every week here. And that's the great Larry Flowers joining us. Who the F is Larry Flowers? That's actually the segment they're doing on the Missing Curfew podcast. Check them out. It's an awesome hockey podcast that two former NHL players, Shane O'Brien, Scott Upshaw, who played in Philadelphia, and now Larry goes on once a week. And they talk about the NHL. Larry Flowers is a famous jeweler. He's been a jeweler for several NFL players, specifically during the St. Louis Blues Stanley Cup run, where he was a part of the whole kind of Jack's, the private club in South Philly. That's for the Mummers Parade. And the Blues played in Philly. Larry is a Philly guy, but his boys all play for the Blues, right? So he goes to the game. He set up a private party for the team. That was the worst team in the NHL at that point in time. This is 3-4 years ago, pre-COVID. And he says, hey, listen, just come to this bar, Jack's in South Philly. We're going to have a good time. We're going to tear it up. They played this song called Gloria. One of the players kept asking, play Gloria, play Gloria, play Gloria, because he was dancing the whole time to it. He's a foreign player. You'll hear the story on here. And literally the Blues went from rock bottom in the middle of the season to winning the entire Stanley Cup. There were several Philadelphia Flyers on that team, Braden Shen being one of them, and Craig Berube, former Flyer coach, who was the assistant coach to start the year, and the team head coach got fired. And long story short, wanted to win the cup. And Larry Flowers is a huge part of that. He talks about being a part of kind of the story and just a mythological person that, he figures become, because he's part of the Stanley Cup run, part of that team. Again, he's a team jeweler. He's a jeweler for NHL players, NBA, guys across the league. He's got awesome stuff. Check him out on his social media. So we're excited to have Larry on. He's got fantastic stories about behind the scenes of the Stanley Cup, private jets, almost getting kicked off the plane. All this just tremendous insight on what it's like to win a cup, be a part of it from afar, but also, be in the mix of it too. So we loved having Larry on, and it's been quite the ride. The last couple of weeks, we've had some amazing guests on: Shannon Spake, Mike Golick Jr., people like Larry Flowers. So the list goes on and on. There'll be more to come. It's going to be probably some more hockey-based stuff, because the NHL playoffs are here, and they're near and dear to my heart. So, Jack, I had the chance this weekend actually go to the Nashville Predators game. My wife and I flew to Nashville just Saturday morning, caught the game, and flew back Sunday. A quick flight from Charlotte, and met the Bozeman family over there, our new center here in Carolina. So I had some fun in Nashville. Got to check out the game. What a cool environment for those that have been in Nashville maybe to party and have a good time, and bachelor or bachelorette party or whatever you're going there for. Catching a sporting event there or a concert right at the Bridgestone Arena, right off of Broadway, literally right on Broadway, is unbelievable. I mean, the crowds of people, you literally walk right out of the bar or restaurant right into the stadium, and you're just having a blast, and you get to, have the whole experience of being at a Predators game in the Music City. It's just different than a normal environment at a game. I was waiting for people to start booing the refs when they came on the ice. It just didn't happen. I was waiting for maybe a little bit more coordinated chance, like there may be at a Flyers game. It just didn't happen. But the overall ambiance, the feel, the pageantry is like nothing else. They have live music between each intermission. It's a much different vibe than maybe when I grew up going to Flyers games or games in the Northeast, like at Madison Square Garden. So I digress. What a cool environment it is to go to Nashville. You ever get a chance to catch a game there? It'd be tremendous. They need an NBA team there. Obviously they have NFL.
I mean, they're probably up soon enough. I mean, I would have to assume they're going to expand two at a time. I know they're looking into it. There have been consistent rumors. It's probably Seattle's the definite one they'll probably go back to, and I think it's up between Vegas and like Tennessee, Nashville area. I feel like that's got to be the 32nd team if they're going to expand.
Yeah. Well, there's a ton of money now, so I'm sure they'll expand, and Nashville is expanding, so shout out to the Bozems for taking care of us the weekend. That was an awesome, awesome experience, but there's so much to go into. But for you, the Sixers fan, I have to just throw up the jump. The Sixers have tied the series 2-2. Embiid has come back off the bench with the mask, the hand, the whole nine. We know it. He's being a warrior. He's just could be more of a Philly player right now. Everyone's loving it. But he got snubbed. He did not win the MVP. Jokic did out in Denver. What are your initial thoughts on that, Jack?
Man, I mean, everybody talks about this Nikola Jokic guy. He must be killing it. I can't wait to see when his next game is. I mean, that's the bottom line to me, honestly. I mean, you get destroyed in the first round. You avoided the sweep. You lose in 5 to Golden State. And I mean, I get the numbers, but they're saying, oh, he's like, it's historically the best offense when he's on the court and the worst team ever to exist when he's off the court. I forget the exact statistic that shows. I think it's just offensive rating, defensive ratings. But I mean, the thing is, I mean, that's the plus and minus of doing these awards and voting right before the playoffs, because it's always for the regular season. I guess that's what they have the finals MVP for, is somebody who the best performer from the postseason. But it's just a shame for Embiid, who dominated a couple of games against Toronto before his injury, took his team through that, and now he's fighting against Miami. I mean, at the end of the day, and I think Embiid would agree with me, a finals trophy is a lot better than a regular season MVP. So, I mean, he gets it for what he did in Denver, but I mean, the homer, man, I feel like Embiid has just done so much to take his team to another level. Because sure, Jokic in the sense was most valuable, but Embiid's team at the end of the day is better.
It's the old argument, right? Is it who would be the most valuable to a team? I mean, look what the Sixers were without Embiid in the playoffs. I mean, so analytically, yeah, you could say Jokic, all these different things, but when Embiid's not on the floor, the team's not even close to the same team remotely. And also, didn't Jokic get pulled the other night from a defensive?
Yeah, he wasn't even on the court during some of the most important moments against Golden State too, which is something other people have brought up. Like Embiid would be on the floor. Like the one thing last night when Embiid switched on to, I think it was Victor Oladipo, and he's shutting him down to the 3-point line. People were saying Jokic can't do that. Like he can't guard on the perimeter like that. He doesn't have.
And I don't think you can be. I don't think we could sit here and say that the whole time, because then you could be like, well, just say say you're in team MVP, the Sixers, like Maxey. Well, Maxey can do things that Harden can't do, and Harden can do things Joel Embiid can't do. So I hear you on that. I'm all on the same page. Like, yeah, like LeBron's one of the only play people on earth, like Magic Johnson, who can guard all 5 positions, right? Especially in his prime. There's some other players that could do it too, right? But I hear you. I'm on the same page with it. I was shocked when it came out today, and I refreshed Twitter. I couldn't believe it. There's a lot of Philly people in our building in Carolina that were not happy campers too, including the great Ed Foley, who's been on this podcast as well, a huge Sixers fan. He was not happy. So, I mean, the Sixers will be fine. I think they win probably 2 out of 3 here, and they're going to win the series. What would it be in 7? Yeah,
it would have to be best of 7, because right now we're Game 5 Miami, series tied up. So that's what we're looking at. It could be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. So we'll see this. My thing on the NBA, I'm a hater. I am. I couldn't watch last night sometimes. I just don't like the non-team game. And I love the product. I just think the guys are too good. Like, I'm going to back you down, and I'm going to pull up and just bang a jumper over you. And that's a whole offensive series. And that happens like 50% of the time, maybe more. Or like Tobias Harris last night, he made a 3 and he was like heat checking himself. So he just cleared out everybody and just one-on-one with a guy. Middle of the third quarter, up 6. Like, shot clock was at like 20 seconds when he pulled the trigger. So listen, I'm not saying as any sort of player, that's the nature of the game. The game's just a different game, right? It's like for me, like when you're watching the game between college and pro football, it's a different game. Now, from a fan's perspective, it may not be, but the hash marks make the game way different. You see a whole different offensive structure. You see a whole different offensive game plan, defensive game plan. It's much harder to defend in college than it is in the NFL. That's why you see the scores in college what they are, because you have to guard more field. You have to be a better open field tackler. The NFL game is a much different game. So I get it. It's just a different product. I just get spoiled with March Madness every year, and then I turn on the NBA, and I'm like, I can't do it. It just happens to me every year, Jack. So I'm always like into the Sixers during the regular season when I'm not watching as much college basketball, and then I transfer over, become more of an NBA fan. But hopefully the Sixers make a run. It'd be great for the city, like I said. Overall, there's a lot of big teams in the NBA playoffs right now, so it's been fun to watch in and out. But I'll transfer over to the NHL playoffs here, something that, it's been huge for me to watch because I love it. I think it's the best product of any of the playoff things. Series in general, best of 7. The guys beat the hell out of each other. It's the purest version of hockey. It's hard to find that in the regular season. It's an 82-game schedule. It's a really long schedule. It's like the NBA regular season, right? It's a little bit different tempo in the playoffs. So I've been loving that. Have you been watching any of the NHL playoffs, Jack? Are you all NBA right now?
I did have a comment on the NHL playoffs. I don't know if it's like I'm definitely not as much into hockey as I used to be, and I also think that's just because of the current state of the Flyers. But I feel like this NHL postseason has been a lot more. Kind of you mentioned a lot more high scoring than usual. Like just looking at the games from last night, every winning team had somewhere between like 5 and 7 goals. And then you look at the other night. You mentioned Nashville. Nashville lost to Colorado. It was like 7-3. Like it's just I don't feel like games have always been that high scoring in hockey. Usually it's like a 3-1, 4-1. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just definitely something interesting I've noticed across the board the last couple of games.
Yeah, the product is getting better. It's harder to be a goalie more and more, even though they're better athletes, better players. It's harder to defend. And over the last couple of years, they've really cracked down on like slashing, and if you put your stick anywhere up near the gloves, they're going to call you for it. So you're going to get like these power plays, and they're all high-powered power plays at this point. Like I was trying to explain, my wife and to the Bozeman's, like different things we were watching during the game, and like all the players for Colorado, and just the difference. Like Nashville's got a good team, but they're missing their goalie. One of their best players in the league who's up for a Vezina trophy, and then Colorado rolls out their power play. I mean, they could roll out 2 power plays that could be one is the best in the league, if not top 3, and the other one it would be like a top 10, right? So it's just a loaded lineup, and these teams go on the power play and they're just absolutely lethal. You can't stop them. You're seeing now like a team like Tampa that's just sick. Toronto's got high-end premier talent. Obviously McDavid and Draisaitl in Edmonton, they're just 2 of the best players in the league. Draisaitl's behind McDavid, but he's almost just as good as him, and no one talks about him because McDavid's there. So, yeah, I mean, the NHL topic's not as popular as maybe the NBA, but the product is so good right now. The fighting, the toughness, the grit, the Boston Carolina series has been great. I'm watching a lot of the East because it's in our time zone. So, but it was cool to see a Western Conference game this weekend. Again, anytime you get to a hockey game in person, it was pretty cool. But just a different environment. It was definitely something I had to get used to compared to something in Philly where everyone's commenting on every call. Everybody's a coach in the stands. It was very chill, Nashville, more of an event than a game, but a great place to watch a game. Everyone's so nice down there. It was fun, but I digress. So F1 seems to become the story, right? Verstappen won it. Team Red Bull. I'm starting to, figure out my way through F1 now. Shout out to NASA George, who's been pushing it on me, but it's the thing, right? It goes in Miami. They announced that a couple months ago that it was going to be in Miami, but it was a who's who. It felt like it was the Derby in a way. Patrick Mahomes, Serena Williams, David Beckham, right? You have absolutely big names like a Tom Brady's hanging out with this person. Michael Jordan's hanging out with this person. It's become a who's who, and that's what the Derby was. This weekend was the Derby as well. And Rich Strike won it 80-1. So there was a lot of, people surprised by that, but there was just so much, it was a lot going on this weekend, NFL news wise, even though there wasn't, because guys, Tom Brady's in the headline for F1. All the guys it's a huge NFL event, the Kentucky Derby. People traveling to that and having a good time because it's the off season. We work Monday through Thursday. So it's a unique time for players to get out, to have some fun, to do the Derby. But now F1's a thing. We had, some players across the league, posting that they were down at F1. So it's a cool event. Did you watch the Derby or did you watch it, F1?
I watched I kept my eye on the Derby because as funny as it is, it was, I mean, the comeback of that race was absolutely ridiculous. But the one thing, my best friend, one of his friends from school was down at the Derby for whatever reason. Now, I don't know why, but they were betting on the horses. And he told me one off like on like Thursday or whatever. And I was like, all right. And then I get a text last night or 2 nights ago. And he goes, my friend just won $30,000 betting on that horse. I don't know how much, what exactly it was. It was like, I don't know exactly how the horse betting goes, but this kid made out big. I mean, that is insane. Kudos to that kid. Shout out to Wooden Big on that. But I mean, the Derby is always just I mean F1. I've seen more of it, and I think there was like a Netflix documentary or something came out, like kind of like detail like the background of like the racing companies and all that sort of stuff, like the rivalries, the drama behind it. That's something that's definitely on my to watch list because I do want to get like I was really big into NASCAR as a kid, and I think F1 is probably a natural progression from that. So I mean, I definitely want to check it out more. It does seem really interesting and fascinating, like the upgraded car designs and like how it's gotten super much more faster than it was even a few years ago. So I mean, I'm definitely interested in it.
Talk about the money being pumped into a sport. Wealth Advisory Services, if you don't know them, you should, folks. The best part about Wealth Advisory Services is they are nationwide. Yes, they're located just in Doylestown and they're Cape May, New Jersey, too. We talk about going on the shore and being available in Bucks County right out of Philadelphia, but they're nationwide. I had friends this week that were talking to Paul from Chicago. I had a friend this week talking to Paul from Texas. So they have an awesome team there, and they have literally people in almost every state that they work with and you know, manage their wealth. All different shapes and sizes of wealth looks like, but we're so fortunate to be working with the team, wealthadvisoryservices.com. Again, you should know them. You really should. The market's been crazy. The housing market's crazy. You need a plan. You need a game plan. Just like us on game day, look no further than our friends over at Wealth Advisory Services. Check them out. Paul, Dave, and their team of 100 years of experience in their office. So, no, F1 was absolutely crazy. And like I said, the finances behind it, you're going to need Wealth Advisory Services because it's real. I mean, look at Netflix. The stock, I bought them, right? I bought the stock too late, just like everybody else. But I bought the stock because why not? The place is, right? It's become, the show is taken off. Like how many things, think about the power of Netflix. We're going to make a show about a league, and now the league's going to become one of the top leagues in the world. Like it was internationally known before, right? Like people know F1 around the world, just like soccer, right? But not everyone may be watching soccer in the States. But out of nowhere, now they're opening up shop in Vegas, Miami. What's next, right? They're already, they know they spend time in LA. I'm pretty sure there's a race in LA already. So that's a huge jump. That's a huge market that everybody wants. Everybody that's international wants the American market. That's why Premier League teams come over here in the summer and play like whatever games just to spend a week in Miami and, you know, play in Miami Stadium. But the American soil, the American dollar, the American follower is what it seems like. I don't have the facts in front of me, right? It's a no-brainer. Is, you know, they're going to expand. You see the NFL expanding into other countries where it may be a good partnership for them. But, you know, just like the NFL is trying to grab, you know, people from Europe, well, the Europe's trying to grab people from the U.S. watching, and that's what Premier League's done. I watch the Premier League every week. Tottenham died this weekend against Liverpool. At least they got some points. But who are you wearing?
Leicester City.
Leicester City, get out of here. So, yeah, long story short, I love the commitment out of you. It's great, but I'm rambling on. My point is, though, F1 is taken off because of a Netflix TV show.
That is nuts.
That is nuts. I'm going to say it again.
The one point that you made that I was kind of, it's like, you kind of mentioned soccer in the European market. I feel like this F1 is slowly becoming the most worldwide popular sport. Like probably basketball is creeping up there too. But I mean, there are some places like the United States really isn't big on cricket or soccer, which is like pretty much popular around the world. And then you go places like Europe, basketball, football. This is probably the most connected worldwide sport because like even like places down like south are really big in the racing and not really in the soccer. You mentioned like that's a market, like it's very, and you mentioned it's very rare that so many markets, especially even within America, are interested in a European sport that is extremely popular. I mean, it's just huge.
No question. I think it brings up a great point. It's a huge product. It's big in the States now. It's growing. It's on the move. I guess what I'm trying to say is the league is mobile. Unlike the Premier League, where every game's in England, we still watch, but you can't really watch, you know, Arsenal play Tottenham on a, you know, Sunday morning, but they'd be playing it Sunday night here. You can't go watch it, but they can pick up shop and go anywhere, which makes them so mobile, makes these guys international superstars even more now than ever because you can just tangibly actually touch them, see them, be around them if you're from the States and huge cities. And I'll say this, just like everything else, right? Certain celebrities, certain people drive a lot of things. They drive a lot of eyes. They drive a lot of money. They drive a lot of advertising. That was a who's who event. That was the event of the weekend. So, I mean, it's a different vibe. Yes, Derby went on and Drake was there and there were people there. And I know a bunch of NFL guys were there and that's all cool and all. But that F1 event was a who's who. Talking to people that I know went down there, they're talking like crazy amount of money to rent a house, like crazy, like literally a year of mortgage payment just for a weekend. Just ridiculous amounts of money to rent a home for that type of event. So, hey, the numbers were probably great. They haven't come out yet. Maybe they have. The viewership, like I said, the attendance is through the roof. They kind of created something that, in Miami, they're right near the Hard Rock, all the things that go with that. So kudos F1. Kudos F1. And again, a huge weekend in sports. But can't forget about our friends over at Fuel Hunt, Shots and Giggles, ProStar Sports Agency. We're very lucky to work with awesome sponsors. Fuel Hunt, a product that I rep working out all the time. An unbelievable partnership with great guys that are Philadelphia guys. Local, hardworking, tough people, putting the respect back in hard work. They're expanding their company too, opening a new warehouse. So shout out to those guys. Just tremendous guys to work with. Shout out our friends at Shots and Giggles in Key West, Florida. They had a killer derby party this weekend with all the locals down there having a good time. You heard Paul come on here, Paul Menta, talk about how just much fun the locals and the party and the camaraderie. Get a drink to go from there, right near Duval Street, right between Duval Street and Conch Republic, right there on the water. So it's kind of a lot of people cross paths. So sitting on that front deck there with old TK and Lance, you're going to have a good time, people watching. So shout out to our friends down there at Shots and Giggles Key West. And last but certainly not least, the reason why I'm talking to you guys today is ProStar Sports Agency. They're another company you got to know. If you don't know them, you should. They are the best in cutting edge when it comes to NIL, to player representation. They represent coaches, players, media members like Louis Riddick, and so many other people. I've been so fortunate to work with them at ProStar Sports Agency, an unbelievable group of agents, Paul, Warren, and John, that I've been working with now my entire 6-year pro career. So, Jack, it's been another great episode, man. Anything in closing before we wrap up? What do we have to look forward to this week? We got a couple big NBA games, more NHL playoffs.
Yeah, I was trying to think the playoffs just continuing across the board. The Golden State Memphis series has been pretty interesting. It's been getting a little chippy over there. Suns, Mavericks, Luka's close to knocking off the top team in the NBA. Sixers, Heat. I mean, that's pretty much NFL schedule drops later this week. It's another interesting thing. That's probably about.
Yeah, that's another one burying the lead. So the NFL schedule comes out later this week. It will be out a day before on Twitter, so everyone's going to know what's going on. It's going to be interesting to see how the chips fall. The NFL is very strategic in how they do things. It is not a mistake. It is not a slap together schedule. It is all about ratings, viewership. There's going to be some Christmas Day games this year. It falls on a Sunday. I think there's like 3 or 4 games, which I'm shocked. I'm surprised we're not all playing.
Yeah.
But there's like 3 or 4 games. So there's going to be games on that Saturday before. There'll be games on the Monday before. I wouldn't even be shocked if they stole like a Friday or did something unique this year that's not out yet. Like, like a Friday game.
I mean, you talk about, the one side note and talking about interesting scheduling. I want your input on this because nobody really even talked about it. So I was watching the Stars game, the USFL this past weekend. Now they play in Birmingham, Eastern time zone. Kickoff was 10 p.m. local time. How would you feel about that as a player playing on, I think it was Friday night, 10 p.m. or Saturday night, 10 p.m.?
Listen, I'll play anytime, anywhere, right? That old adage. I would have to have a serious nap in the afternoon. And if you practice at night, you can do it. Mm-hmm. But I doubt they're practicing at night there. I doubt it. They probably go in the morning, have breakfast, watch a little film, practice, watch a little film, and go home. They're probably home by 3 or 4.
It was a great game. I mean, it was really explosive offense.
10 o'clock at night, Jack, I need a pillow and a blanket. There's no way. At halftime, I'm going to take a power nap. That's 11:30 halftime. It's a little faster. That leaves a little faster than the NFL, but it's crazy. I mean, do you see some of the travel distances that some of these teams have to go? Like Seattle has to go to Germany.
I saw it's like 36,000 miles in total, or 26,000, something like that. And then meanwhile, Pittsburgh doesn't leave their time zone once a season. They stay in the Eastern time zone the whole year.
Yeah, so they play their division, which is right there. Everybody's right there. Cleveland, Cincinnati, Baltimore. Really good boss everywhere. Really good. They play us. They play Atlanta, New Orleans.
Tampa.
Or no, New Orleans probably comes to them because that would be Central time zone. Tampa. Yeah. So yeah, good for them. Hey, listen, that's how it goes, right? But they'll be playing in some primetime games. Like they're still going to be getting home late. That's the one thing that people don't understand is you play these primetime games now. Like I was talking to Bozeman, our center who played in Baltimore. Brad, they had a lot of primetime games. So you say you're on the road, you're at home. Great, you're done at midnight, 1:00. You're home by 1:32. But you got to calm yourself down and go to bed. It's like a 4:00 by the time you're going to bed. If you can calm yourself down, some guys can't. And they don't get any sleep after games. So that screws you up for the whole week, your whole recovery process, everything. But if you're away, you're not getting back till 5 in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning. No. You got to load the bus, load the plane, get all the equipment from the bus to the plane, make sure everyone's fed, go through security. Some guys take forever to go and dress and get showered. I'm like the quickest guy out of there. Just relax on the bus and decompress. But we're being long-winded, which I love. And we're all over the place, which I absolutely love. Talking about things I would not know or wouldn't know we would touch on today. But again, shout out to our sponsors, Fuel Hunt, Shots and Giggles, ProStar Sports Agency, and our official sponsor of Not For Long Media, Wealth Advisory Services, over 100 years of experience in their office, servicing people all around the country with their wealth. So that's Jack Connell. Appreciate you joining us, Jack, as always.
Glad to do it. Enjoy it.
I'm Colin Thompson. I really hope you guys enjoy the Larry Flowers episode. I think you're going to have some laughs, some good times, an absolute character, a Philly guy living out in LA. So, Larry, congrats on your success and really appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the episode, guys.